Right, hi guys, and welcome back to the Merry Yorkshireman, and welcome back into the Cruel Room. This time around, unfortunately, there is no Formula 1 race for me to rant and shout about, but as it is the mid-season, of course, this is time where I do my mid-season reviews of the drivers so far and their performances, where I think they deserve to be in the rankings overall of the top 20 drivers. Are they first? Are they last? Well, we're about to find out, aren't we? Normally, over the previous years, I have done top 5 best and top 5 worst. This time around, the season and the grid has been so poor for driving standards and drivers as a whole. I thought it's going to be getting more backlash than it's worth, because I'll do a top 5 and they'll be like, oh, why ain't that driver there? And I'll do a worst 5 and people are like, oh, well, you forgot about him. Well, yeah, obviously, but I can only fit 5 in. So I've decided this time around I'm going to do it differently. I am going to review the entirety of the grid, and I'm going to go from 20th to 1st, with this episode being all about the 20 to 11. So that is basically the 20th, the worst driver, up to the 11th best, if you can count it like that. Definitely, you know, someone that doesn't deserve to be in the top 10 anyway. So we're going to go through 20th to 11th in this episode, and then in Friday's episode we're going to do the top 10 and in the order that I feel they are. I know people are going to disagree. I know a lot of other reviews and stuff have gone based on their overall just performances over the entirety of the weekend. I've taken things like attitude into account as well, because you know how much that pisses me off. And it is my rating, and it is my rankings, and I'll do what I bloody well please. So, without further ado then, let's kick things off with 20th place for this episode. So this is the worst driver this season as a whole. It is, of course, Zhou Guanyu. It had to be. I'm sorry. It just had to be. The only shining light that Zhou Guanyu has had on the entirety of this season was his Chinese sprint qualifying and Chinese sprint race. Everything else has been very, 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 very poor. He's been half a second slower than Bottas, who hasn't had a spectacular season anyway. He's been lining up last for the most part. He's hardly got into Q2 at any point this season. The car is not a good one. Is it a point scorer? Yeah, it should have had points by now. But Zhou has been nowhere near him at any point apart from that China sprint weekend. That Saturday was a good Saturday for him, but that's been it. That has literally been it. That's been his highlight of the season. At least he did it at his home Grand Prix. There's something in that, I'm sure. But yeah, the rest of this season has been diabolically bad. He has been, you know, like I said, just masses and miles away from his teammate. He's been getting lapped by his teammate in races as well. It's just been inexcusable. Silly spins and shunts in practice sessions. It's just not good. It's just not good, and he should not have been renewed for this season for starters anyway, and the fact that he is doing as badly as most of us predicted just shows you how bad he actually is as a driver. I went into 2022 with high hopes of Zhou Guanyu. I do think he was dealt the wrong card of learning the ropes of Formula 1 when the Alfa Romeo was at its best back then, so Bottas obviously trounced him in terms of points, but at the end of 2022 it was getting quite evenly matched between the two of them, and you thought there was promise there. He totally blew that in 2023, didn't deserve a chance this year, and this season so far has proved why he doesn't deserve a spot in Formula 1. It looks like he's going to be out now at the end of the season anyway, which is, you know, a blessing to everyone. But yeah, one season too many, and he's delivered absolutely nothing at all. So yes, 20th place and last, the worst driver on the grid this season has been, so far, Zhou Guanyu. 19th place, we come to Logan Sargent in the Williams. This was marginal, really, based on Zhou Guanyu and Logan Sargent's performances. But Logan Sargent, I think, he's had one good race. He's had an 11th place, hasn't he? And he's also had... did he have a decent race to start the season off with as well? At Bahrain, I think it was respectable if I remember. Either way, he's maybe had like one better race than Zhou, but it's very, very marginal down here at the back of the grid. So, yeah, certainly deserves a place in 19th and absolutely no higher than that, let me tell you. Again, you know, the same reasons why he's down here as Zhou Guanyu, really. Miles off his teammate Albon, who, let's be honest, hasn't had the best season as well himself. He's certainly not had the staggering heights of what he did last year in basically single-handedly getting Williams 7th place in the Constructors. It's a harder pack this year, but Logan Sargent has been nowhere near Alex, apart from maybe one race, which was Silverstone, wasn't it, where he was one position away from the points. But apart from that, it has been poor. He's had a couple more Q2 appearances of late, but for the most part, if it's not Zhou Guanyu lining up on the back row of the grid, it is, of course, Logan Sargent. And again, another driver that didn't deserve to be here this season, but for some reason got an execution of stay for, well, I don't really know why. But he's been here. We knew he wouldn't deliver the goods. He hasn't. Again, another driver that looks like he's on his way out now, with Carlos Sainz signing for Williams this season, for the following year, of course. So, yeah, but one season too long. He was given all the chance in 2023, didn't really deliver anything spectacular at all. And this year, once again, it's just been stupid. Again, silly accidents, silly incidents, a miraculous lack of pace compared to his teammate and everyone else around him. Just basically beating Zhou Guanyu is not good enough, is it? So yeah, 19th place, it is Logan Sargent. 18th place, and coming to the surprise of absolutely no one, it is, of course, Checo. Sergio Perez in that Red Bull. Started the season off reasonably respectably for the first 3 races, and then it just went all by the by, didn't it? We've had massive accidents, silly shunts, we've had just a general lack of pace, out in Q1 more often than not, out qualified by Logan Sargent this season 3 times, which tells you all you need to know, really, doesn't it? He has been very, very poor and hasn't built on anything. The only glimmer of slight hope that we've had that he's recovering marginally was the Spa qualifying, the last one before the summer break, where he managed to get himself P3 in qualifying, elevated to the front row because of his teammate's penalty, and then in the race finished 8th with a lack of pace all race and was dismal. So yeah, that slight hopefulness of brilliance there that maybe he's going to do okay. He's not, has he? He was allegedly going to get replaced if he didn't do very well going into Belgium. He didn't deliver in Belgium, of course, but looks like it seems to be that he's been given an extra 3 or 4 races into the next part of the season to re-evaluate him further, because he's had strong races at Singapore in the past. So yeah, we'll see. He's had strong races basically at the race weekends that are coming up, so maybe they're going to give him a chance for that, but I wouldn't have ditched him, really. You can't do any harm sticking someone else in that car. Even stick me in it, I can't do any worse than that. So yeah, again, Perez, the reason why he's down here. I wouldn't say it was marginal for him to be 19th or 20th. Good God, no. At least he had some good pace for the first couple of races, but he went by the by rather rapidly, didn't it? And he hasn't recovered from it as yet. So yeah, let's see what happens in the second half of the season for Sergio Perez. Still hanging by a thread as to whether he's going to make the season, but if he doesn't, then it's all his own fault. So Sergio Perez down here in 18th position, and that's just how his season's gone. 17th place, we come to Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Oh, Kevin, oh, Kevin, oh, Kevin. Yeah, I mean, we've seen some good drives from him this season. Admittedly, Saudi Arabia got a little bit messy, didn't it? He was picking up penalties left, right and centre to heavily defend his teammate that was going to do a late stop and come out inside the top 10, which was a crucial point back then. That was really, really crucial when it looked like the top 10 was locked out of the top 5 teams. Were just going to get them all the time. As the season's progressed a little bit, Aston Martin have faltered here and there in places, and it looks like Haas have been able to pick up some points. Realistically, Magnussen's only good weekend this weekend throughout the season has been Austria. That's been it. That has been it, really. Unfortunately for him, it's not been any better than that. And, very disappointing to say. Again, another driver that looks like he's on his way out of Formula 1 now. I wouldn't say he didn't deserve this season, to be honest with you. I think last season was very difficult to tell how they were going to get on. The car was very poor last season with Haas, wasn't it? Finishing last in the Constructors. But this season, it's really been proven early on that Hülkenberg has been the main bread earner of points this season with that car. And Kevin Magnussen, often Q1 eliminations when his teammate's been getting into Q3, or he'll just scrape into Q2 but only line up 15th. It's not been good enough overall. There's certainly been points left on the table there by Kevin Magnussen. Admittedly, he's given Hülkenberg a couple as the season's gone on. Saudi was the big one. But yeah, he's given Hulkenberg like maybe 2 or 3 points with strategy and how he's defended, but he's probably cost the team about 8 in the long run with his poor pace. If he'd have been up there with Hulkenberg on more than just the odd occasion, it could have been a lot more for Haas and a lot more for Kevin Magnussen. So yeah, Kevin Magnussen being very erratic this season, dangerous at times, close to a qualifying ban. Monaco was the big one, wasn't it? Taking Checo Perez out and himself and his teammate out at the start of that race on lap 1, turn 1 effectively was when the contact happened. Really just sums up Kevin Magnussen's season this season. So yeah, unfortunately for K-Mag, again, another driver that looks like he's out of Formula 1 come the end of the season. He did deserve this season, but has been heavily shown up by his teammate and has cost his team points and damage. So Kevin Magnussen, 17th on this list. 16th place, we come to Valtteri Bottas in the second of the Stake Kick Me Up the Arse Saubers. Unfortunately for Bottas, it's been another dismal season. Again, if you're going to say highlights, you'd maybe say China. He had chance of a points there in the main race before his car broke down. And also in Japan, where he had a chance of maybe scraping a point there, but very slow pit stops back then because Stake Kick Me Up the Arse Sauber could not get a good pit stop to save their life. An issue with the locking wheel nuts and the threads on those, which were just causing heavy delays in the pit stops that they didn't get rectified for ages. So maybe, just maybe, had those incidents and breakdowns not happened at China and Japan, we could be seeing Bottas on a maybe 3 points this season. But apart from that, he has been incredibly lacklustre, I'm afraid to say. He has not delivered the goods at all. And there's more opportunities there for that car to score points, but he's just had poor pace, poor performance. Yeah, we've seen at certain times where the strategy calls have been wrong by Sauber, don't get me wrong. But overall, Valtteri Bottas has really not delivered. He really hasn't. He's gone really downhill since that first half of that 2022 season. The car was the only car, the Alfa Romeo, of course, back then, was the only car that was actually came in on the weight limit. All the other cars were overweight. Then once the other teams caught up, it was like, yeah, okay, you've lost some advantage, but his pace tumbled. Last season, we didn't really see much of him. This season, I think in certain circumstances has been a case of what if, which is why he's not as low down as some of the other drivers. But at the same time, he has still left a lot on the table there and has very poor pace in certain races where you've just not seen anything of him and he's been at the back of the grid. So yeah, Valtteri Bottas, 16th on this list, and I can't give him any better than that. 15th place has gone to Daniel Ricciardo in the first of the Visa Cash App Maxi Tampon Buy One Get One Frees. Daniel Ricciardo this season, yeah, he's beaten Yuki Tsunoda on maybe 3 occasions on merit. It's been a difficult one to judge with that AlphaTauri squad because I think they're like just trying to make Ricciardo look a bit better than he actually is. They've not had a good strategy with Tsunoda's car of recent races. Ricciardo this season overall has been very miss rather than hits. We saw a good sprint race from him in Miami. We saw a good race from him in Canada. We've seen a couple of decent and respectable qualifying performances here and there. But then when you look on paper how many points he's scored compared to his teammate, there's a big deficit, and yeah, the rest of it really has just been difficult. Ricciardo, okay, I think has done a little bit better in the last couple of races, I would say, over Tsunoda, even if the paper don't quite show it. But again, there's been a car disadvantage between the pair of them for a couple of races. Ricciardo was given the upgrades before Tsunoda, or in fact they both had the upgrades on at Austria, didn't they? Had poor pace, took them off of Tsunoda, and then it sent that the car went better with the upgrades on, and then they put them back on Tsunoda, and they were like running a hybrid of things. So it got a little bit tricky there to work out and assess both drivers' performances evenly. However, throughout the course of this season, Ricciardo has been relatively anonymous down there, down and out. Couple of good races, but not enough to get him really any higher than 15th, to be honest. So, yeah, Ricciardo, there's still talks that he's going to get that Red Bull seat over Checo. I mean, why, for God's sake? Why would you bother? But, He's a merchant at the end of the day, doesn't he? His merchandise sells loads of hats and sells loads of t-shirts and makes revenue for Red Bull, so it's the only reason he's really stayed on. He doesn't deserve that seat over the likes of Liam Lawson, just in terms of the RB seat here, not getting promoted to Red Bull, but just in terms of this season. That should have been Lawson's seat. I think it's been proven this season. And Ricciardo, as a nice guy as he is, as a great character he is, he's just not recovered from those McLaren days, and he's not impressed me at all this season. 14th place, and a surprise to everyone to see him so far up, it is Lance Stroll in the first of the Aston Martins. Credit where credit is due to Lance Stroll. A couple of races this season, he has beaten Fernando Alonso on merit. And you can't say fairer than that. We have seen the likes of Hungary, of course, where Alonso allowed Stroll through and then they didn't let him retake the position, or Stroll didn't let him retake the position after he was asked to. So, we've seen a couple of team orders there where, on paper Lance beat him, but in theory it was Alonso's victory over him, so to speak. But this latter half of the season where Alonso's lost his head, he's not happy, he's going back to being miserable like he has in like the early McLaren days and the later McLaren days and things. Stroll's been able to capitalise on that, and as much as Stroll is a talentless bellend that doesn't deserve to be in Formula 1, he has beaten Alonso on merit in about 3 races this season, and that has to be commended for something. Not a lot, because he's been shite in the other races, like Saudi, 6 laps in, he just hits the wall and that's him out the race. And he's had silly accidents in like Spa free practice, for example. I mean, this last weekend, the final weekend of Formula 1 was a poor one for him going into this summer break and showed how useless he actually is. But in the odd race where Alonso's lost his head with the team or just can't get to grips with the car, Stroll has been there. So, he's 14th. I'm not singing his praises by any stretch of the imagination, but he's beaten Alonso, and that means he can't be right down at the back, can he? He can't be inside the 5 worst drivers when he's beaten Alonso. So yeah, 14th place. I don't really want to sing his praises because I absolutely hate the guy, but credit where credit is due. He's had some okay performances. He has kept Alonso honest, and that has been a big surprise for me. I think it's been a big surprise for others as well. Yeah, he's still Lance Stroll, and yeah, he still likes to do Lance Stroll things when it suits Lance Stroll. But on that rare day, he's had a glimmer of hope there, and he's 14th based on that, really. 13th place, we come to Alexander Albon in the Williams, the second of the Williams. Alex this season, briefly touched on it talking about Logan, has had a tough run, hasn't it? I mean, it's not all been Alex's fault, admittedly. I will say that. The car has been a very tricky car to handle. It's like gone from being just really good in a straight line to trying to be an average all-rounder in every department. And that's meant on certain circuits and certain occasions where it was strong in previous years, it's not delivered the goods this time around. Alex, I do feel, though, there's a couple more Q3 appearances that could have been in there for him. There's certainly a couple more points that could have been there for him. Not just in terms of bad luck like Canada, where it looked like he was on for a point and got taken out by a wayward Sainz, but just in terms of how the races have played out. He's got roughed up a little bit and then lost his head a little bit and can't quite get back into the groove. We've seen some good racing from him, admittedly. Canada, of course, mentioning that again, the double overtake he did going into the chicane was superb. So we know that the Alex of last season is still in there somewhere, but it has been very few and far between. 2 P9 finishes has really just been the highlight of it. Every other time, it's not really worked out. I think there has been a lack of pace from Alex overall this season compared to what we saw of him last season. We know it's a more difficult car, but I think he needs just to... There's a little bit more in Alex himself, not just the car, and that's why he's down here in P13. I don't think I can give him any better than that. At least he had scores points for the squad and of course has remained the number 1 team leader. The big thing for Alex now is to get that second half of the season under his belt, get the results that is needed of him, and get ready, because Carlos Sainz is coming alongside him next season and he does not want to be beaten around by Carlos Sainz. He can't be dominated, he can't be decimated, because that is really going to undermine his qualities that he does have. He does admittedly have some good qualities, Alex, but he needs to focus now. He needs to deliver in this second half of the season and go, look, this is why you've got me, guys. Sainz is going to come in, we know he's going to be the number 1 driver, even though they're not going to say it on paper, of course, but Alex needs to make sure he doesn't get decimated next season by Carlos, and that's the big one now. So this second half of the season, go for it, Alex. Give it all you've got. You know, we know there's more in you. There might be a little bit more left in the car yet, but there's certainly a lot more left in you that you've not shown us this season so far. You know, there's been silly errors. I mean, Australia, for example, was the real bad one, wasn't it? And I think he's lost his head since then and has not been able to quite find his mojo back. But maybe this season break will give him what he needs, gets into the second half, delivers strongly, gets some more points for Williams, maybe tries and attacks Alpine while they're still self-destructing and doing whatever they're doing, swapping team principles over every 5 minutes and whatever. But yeah, something needs to be done. Alex just needs a little reset. He'll go again, and then he has to focus fully on 2025 to make sure he is not going to be the bridesmaid every single race to Carlos Sainz. That's the key one. So yeah, Alex P13. Yeah, shame he's not higher. If it had been last season, I'd have done this. He's certainly been inside the top 10 without a doubt. But this season, P13 realistically is the best he can get. And yeah, that's it for Alex. P12, we come to Pierre Gasly, the first of the Alpines. And yeah, it's been a difficult one to judge. Gasly here, P12. I can't really give him much more than that, unfortunately. But we have seen some good racing from him that has meant... you know, he's delivered some good points for the team. It's gone okay. It's gone okay. It is a difficult one to judge for Gasly this season. I mean, the first few races of the season, when the upgrades first came in for the Alpine squad, it was a weight reduction because the car was heavily overweight by about 30 kilos. Ocon got that first. So Ocon had the, obviously, car advantage just immediately there with a less weighty car. But so it's difficult to judge in that aspect, but then you see certain races where Ocon has just been better. And I don't rate Ocon. So the fact that Ocon is beating Gasly means it's a little bit alarm belly for me. Gasly, of course, retained for Alpine next season, so he will be someone that we will be saying hello to next season. And he really needs to focus. The second driver not decided there as of recording. Probably going to be Jack Doohan. But again, if Jack Doohan comes into that car, Gasly needs to make sure he's on top of a rookie, because if Jack Doohan starts beating him, then it's alarm bells for Gasly's career. Gasly, I do rate him as a driver. I do think he's good. I think Alpine have had their challenges this season, which has made it difficult to judge their performance equally between Gasly and Ocon. But on the race weekends, we know for a fact that the cars are equal as can be. Ocon has had that edge, and that is where I'm like, oh, not good, not good. But at least he has had some good drives. So yeah, Pierre Gasly for me is 12th this season. And yeah, that's about it. And in 11th place, the last driver we're going to speak about in this video, it is Ocon. That's right, Esteban Ocon here in P11 beats his teammate by a solitary position. Yep, we've had the dramas of Monaco, of course, where he decided to try and just do a silly lunge on his teammate. We've had falling outs over the radios. We've had crying and bitching. We've had a failure for team orders. However, Ocon has looked the stronger driver over these few races, and he's looked better since Alpine have said they're no longer continuing with him. So it's like he's found a new lease of life now. He's signed for Haas, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to end my season on a high and show them what I could really deliver, and that they made the mistake to get rid of the wrong driver, so to speak. I mean, you knew the atmosphere between Gasly and Ocon was never going to last, and the fact it's lasted as long as it has, quite a miracle, to be honest. But yeah, it's boiled over now, and someone had to go, and they've got rid of Ocon. Yeah, his attitude has stank at times, admittedly, and I can't fault that, but, you know, I have knocked him off. Like, in my head, I've thought, yeah, that's shit, he needs to drop positions. But then when you think, well, no, he's still been better than Gasly on the whole. And that's the reason why he's P11. So, yeah, Ocon for me. Personally, this is speaking, like, realistically here. There's been very few occasions where he's left a lot on the table. You know, I don't think there's much more he could have hoovered up in the races that he's delivered the goods when the car is capable of doing so. Yeah, I think Ocon has been the best all-round package for Alpine. Despite the attitude and despite the silly dramas and despite that, you know, I think there has been occasion there where Ocon really has got the most out of that car that he could. So, yeah, that's why he just edges it for me over Gasly. In terms of attitude, of course, I put Gasly well above Ocon. You know, if this was the attitude ratings, Ocon would be down there in 19th or 20th. But in terms of overall pace performance this year, I have taken his attitude into account. But I do still feel he's had that slightly stronger season than Gasly so far, even if the overall results don't quite show it. So there we are then, guys. That is my rankings so far, 20 to 11. Let me know in the comments section below. Is that all right by you? Do you agree with my positioning of these 20 to 11? Is there any drivers that you don't see in here that you're like, no, he definitely needs to be in here? Or are there any drivers that you think, I think he deserves to be in this ranking, but he's well lower or well higher than I would have put him? Let me know in the comments. As always, I love to chat with you all. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you for your continued support, of course, as always, with the channel. And you'll see me on Friday at 6 PM for the next instalment of this, where we rank 10 to 1. This one's going to get spicy. I feel this one's going to get spicy. I've put some drivers in controversial positions in my mind, I should feel. And I think a lot of other people will as well. So let me know, as always, in the comments below what you thought of this one. And I look forward to seeing you on Friday for the next instalment where, yeah, things might kick off in the comments section. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and as always, much love.